Now, Accra will be the host city for a two-day social accountability multi-stakeholder forum. It starts tomorrow. Government officials, local governance experts and civil society groups from the West African sub-region will meet to discuss how to create a knowledge and information sharing platform for best practices on both supply and demand side accountability initiatives in Ghana and Africa. I have two very fine gentlemen here in the studio for that discussion. Kwame Ahiabenu II is Executive Director of Pemplus Bite. I like your title. That's the title, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ahiabenu II. Okay, we'll probably come for some of the lands for the people who have been displaced at Ningwa. I also have here in the studio Paul Nana Kwabena Abram-Pamensa. He's a Senior Programs Officer with the Ghana Center for Democratic Development. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So the corruption discussion is something that's been ongoing, and I'm very hopeful that in my lifetime in this country, we'll come to a point where this country will rid itself of corruption, even though I've heard a lot of people say, if you look at the way corruption is and how it's been established in our system, it's going to be very difficult to remove it. We've just been listening to the Auditor General, and I'm curious to find out what you think. Some of the things that he said that stands out, for example, saying that if you earn 3,700 upwards, that you should declare your assets. I don't know. Do you think that will be very helpful in the fight against corruption? Any of you that's willing to go can start.
Okay, thanks very much for that question. I think it's important that we get public officials to declare their assets, but that's not far enough, because once you declare the assets and the information is not made available, we cannot use it to hold them to account. So yes, it's good for you to declare your assets, but
to what end?
Yes. So we need to go beyond that and look at how we can ensure that that declaration is done in a manner that we can have access to the information when there's change in people's income and also liabilities, because you can go into public office with liabilities. And if you pay off the liabilities, it's equally good as any.
Because it won't be recorded in your assets.
Yeah, you have to present all your liabilities and assets. And once there's change, now we can hold you to account.
That sounds interesting to me. Mr. Rampa, what do you say?
Well, that's exactly that, because the end points of knowing people who enter into politics of government's assets is to try to monitor how they progress in their lifetime in the office. So if the asset is so held in secrecy, how do we then hold that accountability in their lifetime? Like what Buhari did. Even the cows that he owes were made public for everybody to know. So if the cows added 10 in the lifetime of Buhari, everybody will know. So it's not enough to conceal the asset and give it to the Auditor General. It's enough for us to know what is in the assets. How in the 4 years are you able to build upon the asset or reduce it?
Especially when the Right to Information Bill has not been passed, and so you can't even compel any of these state institutions to give you that information. Let's talk about the stakeholder forum that you're organizing. Now, why a multi-stakeholder platform, and what really is it going to add? What different is it going to add to what we've been doing so far in this country about corruption?
Okay, for us, we're looking at social accountability. Social accountability could know the fact that there are players in the space. We have the citizens we happen to consume, we have service providers, we have the state. Now, all these parties have to be active in the space to ensure that, if we take the example of service delivery, is done to the satisfactoriness of the citizens. However, what we experience is that there's no accountability, in the sense that when those services are delivered, but they are not delivered to a certain standards, nobody can hold them to account. When resources meant for delivery of certain services are not being utilized, we cannot hold them to account. So what we want to do with this forum is that, how can we ensure that social accountability, getting citizens to be active, getting citizens to be interested, getting citizens to voice their concern is brought into the space, so that it will allow for us to hold elected and unelected public officials to account. It will ensure that service providers are also upping their game to ensure that at the end of the day, whatever services that we're supposed to be provided are done well to the satisfaction of everybody.
Right. Let me find out from you, Mr. Brampa, whether you've mentioned holding leaders or persons who have a mandate to account, but are there any specific areas that you're going to be looking at that this stakeholder forum is going to be looking at, tackle?
Yes, let me say a very good afternoon because he did not allow me to greet. But let me also give a background of why there's the need for accountability.
Okay.
I was just reading the new Afrobarometer survey, which will be released tomorrow. And I just told myself nothing is changed in citizens' engagement and interface affairs over the years. I remember in 2011, we had a support from the European Union and did a baseline survey as to how effective citizens' interaction with their district assemblies have been. And the reports in 2011 is almost similar to the figures I read from the Afrobarometer today. It says that over 87 citizens have never contacted their assemblies to complain of lack of service or poor quality of service provided during the survey of 2017. And about 80% think that it's unlikely to access information from their local assemblies. And in fact, people prefer reporting their problems of public services to their pastors, right, to reporting to the local council. In fact, the data says that 41% prefer reporting lack of services to the religious leaders and media stations to reporting to the local councils. I was
just going to ask about the media because that's so funny.
It tells you the gap that has been created between the citizens and the local assemblies. But the Local Government Act, as amended in 2016-936, the basic objective of local government is to bring governance closer to the people for their effective participation to plan their development agenda so that the local councillors will lead the development of the states. If this is the gap, I liken this to a marriage where after you enter your matrimonial home, you're of loggerheads, you're not talking to each other. How do you make babies? So how are these
technology will help.
How are these people going to provide the needed quality of services
when the people are not being
engaged? Right. That's the problem. That's why Pen Plus Bytes, GACC, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, Send Ghana and CD Ghana have come up together to hold this interface engagement of a forum. We've been implementing social accountability programs over the years. So now we are going to see the successes we've chalked so far. Our programs and the supply side accountability being churned out by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the programs that the civil society organizations are implementing, have they resulted in quality of service provision at the local level?
Do we have any answers on that now?
That's what we are going to assess together. If not, what have been the gaps? What's the way forward? So that's the essence of the forum tomorrow at Alisa Hotel.
Okay, and who is coming? I mean, what are we to expect tomorrow, for example? This is happening tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and then
at Alisa Hotel. What are we to expect? I mean, for people who have heard, sometimes you hear corruption, it goes through one ear and it goes through it goes from one ear through the other, because people feel like it's really come some way, somehow. It is so deeply rooted that it's very difficult to do away with it if you want to. And it's all part of the social accountability, isn't it? Well, if someone is stealing so much, then we won't have enough to. What are people to expect tomorrow when they come? Can people come and make their views air their views? Can people just walk in there?
Yeah, let me take on before Kwame comes in. So the forum is institutionalizing social accountability in local governance, the success gaps and the way forward. So it's open to everybody. In fact, we have a slot called media and social accountability. We expect the media to be there. The work that we've been doing so far, somebody might not know, even covering of the demolition of somebody's house is social accountability. Who was supposed to have awarded the house? Who was supposed to have monitored the development of the place? Who did what and who did not do what? Why have we got into this place? It's also accountability. So we expect people who have the background using new social media to exert accountability, using the power of their airwaves to also exert accountability to come.
How are they? How can people use social media?
In fact, that's the field of Kwame. And Kwame will talk much about that.
Okay, well, let's zoom in on Kwame so that we can get to know how people can be a part of this through social media.
Okay. One of the challenges we have in this space, as you mentioned, we have the supply and the demand, but we need to close the feedback loop in the sense that it would be wonderful for more people to be giving feedback, but if they do give the feedback and nobody is able to action it, then it's not useful. So one of the aims of this forum is that how do we close the feedback loop in the sense that if the citizens provided feedback, how would the duty bearers or the decision makers take up that feedback and what translate it into some solution or solving some problem? In this light, it's important that we create channels or pathway for citizens to communicate their concerns. And to do that, social media can, because if you're able to tweet or send a post, it can be taken up.
Is there a hashtag? Because usually that's how.
Yeah. So we have the address is platformafrica.net. That's a website, and the hashtag is SOCACC for.
Okay, so let me get this clear.
Yeah, okay.
Platformafrica.net. You go there.
Yes.
And that's the website.
Yes, that's the website. You see the hashtag and all the
hashtag and everything.
In there,
is there.
And for us also, it's also important about this notion of open government, where government, as Mr. Brapa said, should not be closed. We should be open. Open in the sense that if I'm in a relationship, I'm having a challenge, I should be able to communicate it. If you're also having a challenge, you should be able to communicate it. And if you don't have that openness, and sometimes the public officials may have some challenges, it's also important that they communicate to the citizens. So we are very big on how do we close the feedback loop between all the stakeholders within the space.
Okay, let me say a very big thanks to you gentlemen for coming. But tomorrow, they'll be looking at assessing some of the social intervention programs. We're looking at LEAP, NHIS, and in fact, NHIS, President Akufo-Addo at the latest State of the Nation address says it has been revived and it is working, even though the NHIS itself is saddled with debt. We know that for sure, and they're looking to reduce their debt. So come listen and be a part of that assessment. Also look at the school feeding program, which has been saddled with a lot of controversies, issues between the Gender and Social Protection Minister and the Northern Region Minister, etc. Last year, the National Youth Employment Policy. Come and be a part of this conversation, and let's see how it helps our fight against corruption. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
I've been speaking with Kwame Ahiabenu II. He's Executive Director of Pen Plus Byte, and Paul Nana Kwabena Abrampa Mensah. He's the Senior Programs Officer, Ghana Center for Democratic Development. And that meeting, the stakeholders meeting, is tomorrow at the Alisa Hotel. I got that right?
Yes.